اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد 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 وعجل فرجهم اللهم.
Balance between, we could say, politics, the social aspect and the spiritual aspect become imbalanced. And so we were saying, first of all, hadith collections, certain hadith collections which have taken a kind of exoteric or kind of a superficial approach to Islam have contributed to that imbalance. And you're about to move on to, of course, Wahhabism and Salafism.
Yeah, well, this was the big explosion, at least in my mind, you know, the big exteriorization and literalization of our religion. And, you know, before the phones start ringing off the hook, you know, let me say, I know people don't like being called Wahhabis. I know people don't always like being called Salafis. Some of them do, some of them don't. And I know people definitely don't like this stuff all mixed up. But honestly, I'm talking about the same idea. A very external approach to religion, a very literal approach to religion, you know, one that focuses just more on the practices and less on the kind of the inner spiritual path. And also one that has kind of demolished the customs and traditions. Not the bid'ahs, by the way. We don't believe in bid'ah either, but the customs and traditions that keep us, kind of keep our spirituality going, such as, you know, very classic, you know, visiting the graves of the imams, or for some people, the saints. And, you know, I mean, unfortunately, this, you know, idea spread very, very quickly, and, you know, maybe it hasn't taken over Sunni Islam completely, but it's definitely left its mark. And I think, you know, in particular, this is particularly pronounced in Western non-Muslim countries. I don't know about other predominantly non-Muslim countries, you know, but where you have youths growing up there, where, you know, what they understand of Islam is most of the time what they hear at the masjid. You know, because the society is non-Muslim. There's no Islamic heritage. They don't have kind of expressions of Islamic spirituality like architecture and mosques, you know, great mosques, and the tile work, the calligraphy, the poetry. You know, this heritage isn't there. Or the love for Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. I mean, this is all throughout the Islamic world. It's not a Shi'i thing. You know, and they just go to the mosque and they hear, you know, this Imam of the masjid, who probably was trained in these kind of sort of, sorry to say, Wahhabi Salafi ideas. The books they get are sometimes funded quite extensively by people with these ideas, and they learn, this is Islam. Now, some people might be wondering, well, what does that have to do with me? You know, I'm a Shi'i Muslim. We don't believe in Wahhabism. You know, Wahhabis here, Shi'is here, you know, Wahhabis. We know they killed Shia from the beginning. They went out and killed Shia and other people who disagreed with them until today. It happens all the time. It's very sad. But the fact is, I don't think there's that much division. And yes, we don't pick up a book and say, oh, look, you know, Ibn Taymiyyah or Ibn Abdul Wahhab, you know, great idea here. But they come through third parties. There are many Islamic movements, you know, which have kind of had ideas that are related to this. Or like you said, I think it's also very similar to some of the secular ideas people take. I don't think there's necessarily, and it sounds like there shouldn't be, but it's the same idea, you know, a little bit of exteriorization and literalization. And also people talk, especially again, you know, if you go back to the youth in some of these non-Muslim countries, you know, a lot of our youth kind of, quote, come into their religion at university, if they're fortunate enough to go to university. I mean, I know I really did. You know, I was practicing Islam before then, but, you know, it was when I went to university, joined the MSA, you know, the Muslim Student Association. I learned all about the Muslim Brotherhood and, you know, different reformers and, you know, all of these different aspects of kind of the Islamic consciousness that I'd never really thought about so much. You know, and then they do talk, you know, and they interact with each other. And so it's not like these ideas are only for certain madhabs. You know, they're ideas that I think affect all of us. That being said, I do think there's something deeper going on here, and certainly something deeper that's not limited to, you know, the Sunni religious tradition. And incidentally, you know, I should just mention something here, by the way. just for the sake of clarification, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I don't want to sound like I'm saying Sunnism is not spiritual. I don't want to offend Sunnis. There is a lot of spirituality and expression of spirituality in both Sunni and Shia Islam. You know, Rumi, the guy astaghfirullah, the poet we were talking about, he was Sunni, you know. I mean, you know, and there's Sufi groups, but even outside of Sufi groups, you know, I mean, it's natural for humans to be spiritual. Yeah. But I'm saying this kind of way of thinking occurred in that kind of framework and has had a lot of lasting effects today. But like I said, I don't think it just has to do with that. I think there really is something deeper going on that doesn't stem from our religious tradition.
And what is that then?
Well, now that's the million-dollar question. And there's my American-centricism again. I think it comes from a very deep philosophical question, which is, how do we view the universe?
Right.
What is? You know, what is the universe? I'm not going to ask you that question because I think you'll have a very deep answer to it.
I don't know. I might not. Well, it looks like some stars and some planets and...
No, I suspect you will have a very complex answer. But if we take, say, an average student, maybe a 13-year-old kid going to school and say, hey, you know, what's the universe? If they know anything about the universe at all, inshallah they've learned, you know, they might say, well, the universe is exactly what you said. Stars, planets, galaxies. They might show off a little bit, you know, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. You know, and then we have the Earth. We have plants, animals. But the point is the universe is what is. This is probably what they're going to say. And by what is, they mean what it physically is.
Yeah.
And this is a answer to that question. It's a very common answer. It's kind of the, quote, contemporary scientific answer that existence is the stuff we can physically measure, we can take to the laboratory, we can take a digital photo of, we can video record. And if we can't somehow measure it, you know, it's not really existence. That's not to say people don't believe in heaven and hell and God and all of that. They do, but the idea is that's personal. It's something else. It's less important. This is what is. And I don't want to get too philosophical, but, you know, some people who are a little bit philosophically minded will say, wait, you know, there's some stuff that we can't see, we can't feel, but it still is, like love.
Yeah.
You know, love is. No one is going to say it's not. Or mathematics. And how many people put love and mathematics in the same sentence? You know,
that's nice. Yeah.
It is, you know. I mean, you know, but it's something we can't feel. I mean, like the number 3. You know, I can have 3 apples or 3 bananas or 3 cars. But, you know, 3 is an abstract idea. I can't actually touch it, but I can see its effects in the world. So it's okay because it's still materially understandable. But, you know, the stuff that's kind of completely unseen is somehow not so relevant. And I'd like to point out, and this is the very important point here, that this is not an absolute. You know, if you ask people throughout history, different cultures, different faiths, you know, what is, they will give you very different answers. And so, you know, a lot of times we grow up thinking that this view of existence, you know, material existence is the most important existence and anything else is, you know, it's your decision if it exists or not. This is a very, well, I shouldn't say it's a contemporary view, but the mass acceptance of it is very contemporary.
Would you say that the externalization of religion, I mean, you've been saying that, you know, students, Shias and Sunnis, people from, Muslims from all different parts of the world, they are interacting, they are exchanging ideas, they are absorbing. So, I mean, especially working in different sectors, hospitals, a lot of public sector workers as well do work very long hours and are dealing with often quite the ugly side of society as well, seeing the worst side of humanity.
Stuff, it takes a lot out of people. Even education is hard. I mean, you see young people going through such difficult things, you know, family problems, abuse, drugs. Not that I'm really dealing with that right now in my job, but, you know, if you work especially in secondary school or something, I mean, it's draining. Counseling, for example.
Well, I don't know, I guess maintaining your spirituality, I find that... not that I practice this, but I mean, I used to do a lot more practice, which is just contemplation. Contemplation, switching the light off and turning your attention to your heart in silence and just having a moment, or we could say an hour, 45 minutes, or even half an hour of silence, not sleeping, because often the only time we get silence in our life is when we switch the light off. we're trying to go to sleep, and then we wake up and it's kind of the phone's ringing, and it's immediately straight back in to the day. So I think, but what I've noticed, and I've done this practice with some other sisters, is, in fact, we've just done it one time so far, but 10 minutes of silence of us. Again, we've all got extremely hectic lives, but we come together once a month for a couple of hours, and in that couple of hours, just sit together for 10 minutes in silence, turning the attention to the heart, and just that 10 minutes can change the way you feel about everything. So.
That's really nice. That's very beautiful. I think that's a really good idea. I mean, even if we're by ourselves, some of our great ulama have, for example, sat before they prayed for, 5 or 10 minutes, and just sit and, and think. And even Allama Tabatabai, for example, in one of his books, he recommends this too. Just kind of train yourself to sit and think, turn off your lights, mental lights, physical lights, whatever's around that's distracting you, and just focus and contemplate, because it is something that helps us build our spiritual connections and also regain, balance and prioritize and so forth. Something we're missing nowadays with all the TV and, input, again, the iPod, the MP3 player, the mobile, we don't have silence like perhaps most of our ancestors had.
Yes. They would have had a lot more silence than us, and a lot, we don't know, maybe less distractions. We don't know. I guess we've got different kinds of distractions. I mean, I found I try to integrate. As you say, it's where you turn your attention to. So I would say I try to integrate turning attention to Allah in one's daily life, and probably the best place to do some tasbih is not on public transport, but that's actually that's my favourite. Not in my favourite place to do tasbih, but I find that it protects you because you're going out into the city, and Birmingham's probably the same. You're going out into the city and you're bombarded with all different kinds of energies, mentalities, traffic jams, exhaust fumes, cigarettes. And I think just doing a tasbih like 100 salawat or 100 la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah or something, that kind of just again centers you and kind of brings a protection about you.
And plus, I mean, for someone who is kind of spiritually deep, they have this kind of deep relationship with Allah. They see the signs of Allah in everything. They see the signs of Allah on public transport. They see the people on public transport, and you don't see them like, oh, this train is so crowded, it's so annoying, and he's smoking and she's singing or whatever. You see these people, they are vessels for the divine. I don't want to sound corny here, but each of them has this kind of deep, soul inside of them. It doesn't matter if they're a Muslim or not. They have the same goal. They are sent to this earth to purify their soul, to learn about the spiritual realities, and they'll be taken into the next world just like us. It's not like this is exclusive to us. I think, and if we kind of see other human beings in that light, it changes a lot just how we deal with daily experiences, such as taking the bus when people are, cussing at you and stuff, or, hitting you, or just how we deal with people in general. And I think, again, this perhaps, has to do with how we view other people, which is, again, a very subconscious view. Do we take a material view of humanity, or do we take a kind of spiritual view of humanity? Because kind of parallel to this kind of quote scientific. I am quoting that, but not that I'm against science, by the way. I'm very pro-science. I have taught A-level physics, alhamdulillah. But, that kind of objective, pseudo-objective view of the universe where what is what I can measure, that has come with making humanity very irrelevant. Because basically we're the people sitting on the third rock from the sun. Were we to get into a nuclear war, inshallah it doesn't happen, but realistically we have the capacity to destroy our planet many, many times over. It's not an illusion, or it's not an imaginary thing. It's something we could practically do right now if we wanted to do it. So what? The universe will keep going on like it was going on because we are very, very, very small and very irrelevant. And I think that, by the promotion of this idea, and again, subconscious promotion of this idea, this kind of material view of the world, which kind of divorces the spiritual from the material, divorces us from kind of our spiritual roots and goals, it also kind of results in treating people differently, because I'm going to treat you a lot differently if, I see you as a speck on the third rock of the sun, versus if I see you as this deep, spiritual creation, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I actually don't recall, but I think Sister Zahra and I might have been speaking about this on one of the shows a couple months ago, but it certainly doesn't hurt to repeat. These are very important ideas, I mean, again, in the Islamic tradition, like every other religion, this is not exclusive to Islam. This is, again, one of the essential parts of religion. We have a lot of respect for the human soul. It is something